Hi, I'm Greg Wales from Wales Hearing Center. We have offices in Alexandria, Fergus Falls, Morris, and Long Prairie. I'm board certified in hearing instrument sciences, a past president of the Minnesota Hearing Healthcare Providers, and a member of the International Hearing Society. We're also proud to be part of the Starkey Hearing Alliance. Starkey has introduced the SurfLink Mobile, and we are making it available to anybody who comes to Wales Hearing Center and says, we heard about the Starkey SurfLink Mobile on Inform TV. Anytime between now and the end of the year, anybody who comes to Wales Hearing Center and says, we heard about the Starkey SurfLink Mobile on Inform TV and purchases hearing aids from us will receive a free SurfLink Mobile, a $629 accessory. It allows your hearing aids to become your Bluetooth telephone. It allows your hearing aids to become a link to your television so that your television and your hearing aids make a new home theater experience. You'll hear in stereo at the level that you like, corrected for your hearing, and it won't bother anybody else in the family. The Starkey SurfLink Mobile is also remote control. It allows you to adjust the volume of your hearing aids and to change the environment setting of your hearing aids depending on whether you're in a quiet place, a noisy place, outside, or just sitting quietly having a normal conversation. Please remember, between now and the end of the year, the SurfLink Mobile is free to anybody who comes to Wales Hearing Center and says, we heard about the SurfLink Mobile on Inform TV. Thank you.
To find local classifieds online, go to bluebirdshopper.com. Just type in bluebirdshopper.com in your address bar or search for it and you'll find it. It's easy to place an ad. You just click the place ad button in the upper right and you can type your ad in, and it's simple to do. We also have events and all kinds of items on the site. We also have a mobile version, so you can find bluebirdshopper.com on your mobile smartphone.
Welcome to Inform TV. I'm Alan Repke, Alexandria, Minnesota. Today, this Sunday afternoon, on November 24, 2013, we're going to look at a few things that came across the news that I want you to think about a little bit, and some of them are shocking, and some are in the news, but I want to put a little different spin on them because I think they definitely need that. One of the things I was watching the McLaughlin Group, and one of the predictions, one of those people said that they didn't think the Farm Bill was going to get passed. That was their projection or prediction. And when you look at what's going on and how they have drug out this simple Farm Bill that they're fighting over a few $1 billion, about $1 billion a year actually, maybe $2 from a standpoint of the food stamps and this crop insurance deal that we've shown here is just a super plum, and they want to keep that going, and any of the restrictions on the super fat cats is absolutely not understanding the economics and the actuarial reality of insurance and how it should be handled in the first place. But anyway, this lady on McLaughlin Group, a new person I hadn't seen there before, but I guess I haven't watched it of late, but she was talking about she didn't think that the Farm Bill would pass, and I tend to agree with her, because all of a sudden we're running out of time, people. We're going to have our Congress and senators maybe back for a day or two this week, and then they're going to be on their Thanksgiving break, and then they're only going to have a few working days between in December before they go on their Christmas break. And the reality of it, the Farm Bill is a disaster for you farmers out there, whether it's the old one or the new one, if we're going to continue to have this corn price and these grain prices come down like they are right now. And when you look at the South wanting these direct payments to continue, I think this lady makes a good point, that rather than pass some true reform in farm policy, we'll just trip on for another year and probably another 2 years till we see who the new president is. And one of the other things that should just infuriate you is some of the people that are on this conference committee, and the Senate side, especially Pat Leahy from Vermont was, I believe, one of the past chairmans in my farming day, just a disaster. Then Tom Harkin, the same way. Max Bacchus of Montana, the typical lawyer. And now we got Amy Klobuchar representing on this committee. We know what Amy knows about farming. And then on the Republican side, they got this Pat Roberts. He's the one that did this so-called freedom to farm BS. And you have to understand that some of the names that I mentioned here, when we went to freedom to farm, where you just make these payments, and it was supposed to end after 7 years, and this came into play on a 96 Farm Bill, and it was time that I had a radio program, and I was calling around, farming a lot of stuff, very successful. And I tell them, what are you guys doing? This is a disaster, the way you've got to set up the loan rates as far as when you get an inventory in the bin, as far as if prices are low, you can't manage inventory. It's a simple 9-month loan where the Cargills and the Tysons and ADMs know in 9 months are going to have the grain. And these payments were going on old history and so on and so forth. But anyway, this Farm Bill of a bunch of these names that I'm talking about, including our Colin Peterson is on there. We were looking at a period where in 2006 they were going to spend $7 billion for 7 years, $49 billion, and at the end of that, we were done. We were just going to have the open market, let the good old open market rule, when the reality is we don't have an open market. When you got futures traders and speculators and hedgers and whatever, there's not a free open market. And these guys had in their head that they were just going to send out this $7 billion per year for 7 years all over. And after, I think it was 2 or 3 years, they had already spent $65 billion more than this $49 billion they originally budgeted. And now these same clowns people are on the conference committee and are going to give us a new farm bill going forward when we have a Senate and a House that's so incredible partisanship back to the ideology rather than the reality of marketplace, and 17 trillion in debt, and always blaming the other guy for the incompetence. And you see the need for term limits and those type of things. The farm policy, the farm issues, as I've talked here before, is the easiest way to see incompetence. Then, of course, we had the Vikings stadium issue. The third now, they're going to knock down a perfectly good building. And they're going to have their groundbreaking ceremony, so to speak, of dumping a truckload of sand on some concrete or asphalt there, and throw a couple shovels in the air, and every politician from Timbuktu will be there taking credit for it, and so on and so forth. When the reality, we just had the Gophers game out there, and I remember as a kid, Memorial Stadium, I thought, who are the idiots that designed this thing? Because my aunt used to have tickets, and we'd go down there, my old maid aunt, and little kid, you freeze to death in the place, and then we went to down there as a football team and band and that type of thing. And the band, we'd always have to sit on the west end, or that open part where the wind would whirl through there. And finally, with my no musical talent, I told my mother, I'm going to join the French Foreign Legion. I'm going to quit band or leave home. I am not tolerating band. It's a waste of my time. I need to study all, and so on and so forth. My two buddies, they stayed in the band, and neither one of them were able to have children. And I always joked with them, you guys, you stayed in the band. I at least got my seed back. I got 2 kids anyway, but I told you can't sit on those bleachers and freeze like we were at and expect to have a good outcome on it. And now we had a perfectly good dome just a short distance away, and everybody's out there freezing. And we have a so-called world-class university that didn't understand that if you wanted it close to campus, if these kids were turning out, can't cross the river when they're going to college, well then build a thing on campus, but knock enough old buildings down or whatever right on the perimeter, and so on and so forth, and do it so the Vikings play on Sunday and the Gophers play on Saturday, and show that you have some intelligence. Now, of course, we're going to have this brand spanking new stadium that Hilgen now is saying with this additional money that the Wilfs are going to put in, the state is going to have less than half of the money in it, because it's going to cost over $1 billion now, but with some shenanigans and shuffling with the Wilfs and whoever there are going to be more. But see, the reality, we've talked it here, the seat assignment sales is easily going to generate 100 million to 125 additional million, so that the people of Minnesota are still going to have the most money in it. And the reality is, we've drug it out this long. Why don't we wait just a little bit longer? Because in December, early December here, we're going to find out whether the New Jersey Attorney General or the court system there is going to bring criminal charges against the Wilfs, and we're going to find out what the final bill is. Are they going to sign, like I've talked about here, another $16 million? So these guys going to owe $100 million on this suit deal they were involved in. You see, people, when we live in a society, when we have no leaders, we have politicians, this kind of thing continues to go on and on and on. And then I also did get a little email press release from Jeannie Johnson, the Minnesota climate activist group here locally and in the state, and they were trying to they had a fast that relating to the suffering going on in the Philippines, and obviously I've locally here, and I haven't contacted them for whatever reason. I keep putting it off or forgetting about it when I have time of some family, dear friends here that have family in the Philippines here in town, and they were talking about, kind of implying that this storm, of course, was based on global warming, I presume, and granted, anytime people step up the plate and try to address them, I support their concept, but some of the things that they're doing on a fast, I don't think does what these people need. I'd prefer to see that they walk door to door and pick up some checks so we could send additional money over, but they probably did some of that. But this whole process of fossil fuels and climate change and that type of thing, I wish they would come in here and talk with me or support my concept of going down to the state legislature and get a gas pipeline as well as a crude oil pipeline brought in from North Dakota. One of the things on the ag side, when they were talking about reducing the ethanol portion of this ethanol mandate down to 13 billion gallons, which the EPA did, one of the farm writers talked about, well, why don't they do something about North Dakota? And he talked there of over a third of the natural gas that's coming out of the Bakken oil find there in western North Dakota and Montana. They're just burning the gas off, just like our modern world has been doing for probably a century and a half now. Despicable. And we talked in a previous segment about Iran and their nuclear capabilities. They're burning off natural gas that should have been used to generate electricity. Instead, they say we need a nuclear power in the oil patch of the world. They want to make a bomb, people, and that was their only intent. And I sympathize with Israel and Saudi Arabia of these people have to be watched and crushed if they get a bomb. We're just not going to tolerate that. And anyway, in this process, they were fasting for a day and were talking about how it was a boring concept when you can't eat. And the reality is, a lot of our activities when we get in groups, and I've always criticized my own church or church at large that I belong to in the Christian community, of all these people, you know, we have to have a Bible study. You're not a true Christian unless you belong to a Bible study group, and we got to pray about this issue. I think the Bible's always made it very clear to me, where he said to be a Christian, serve him, and see that something actually gets done. And rather than being too many of our Christians, I always say, are really Islamic people. They want to pray 5 times a day or more, and I guess I pray on the go for strength in my kids and our nation and that type of thing, silently. But when we look at issues here, we tend to lose our way as far as what does it take to really get some changes. And obviously when we look at our Filipino friends there, as well as the Japanese there, of having coastal shore area were as flat as a pancake, just hardly above sea level, and when a storm hits or an earthquake hits, they didn't get to the hills right away. And then we talk about the Philippines, the reference of a third world country. I see really no reason for any country to be considered a third world country, because government and education and that type of thing, especially with the internet world, can address issues. And for the Filipino government there to talk about we need aid, we don't have drinking water, we don't have food. I mean, people, where are you coming from? Didn't they know that this was a true likelihood, just like down in Florida when the hurricanes come in, or New Orleans? Government people know those things are going to happen. And I've always said here in the United States, we had Katrina down there where we have a city below sea level and plenty of land in the United States, and instead we spend these billions of dollars to pump water out of land that's below sea level. And then we have Texas and we have Florida that don't have any state income tax, and the minute something happens with a natural storm, these hurricanes, those type of things, they want federal aid. Where I contend, if any state that doesn't have, is fortunate enough like Florida to have all these tourists come down there and live off a sales tax, or the Texans down there, this Governor Perry, that somehow some Republicans still think he should be a presidential candidate, just beyond my wildest dream how they ever come up with that, especially his performances in those debates, where they have all this natural gas and our petroleum resources. They've never had a state income tax, as far as I'm aware of anyway. At least when when I was married, my wife, when we got married, she was teaching down there in a college, and I lived down there for probably in the winter time, the one winter until we got her moved back to here, and she had a contract to fulfill and so on and so forth. And they weren't paying any taxes on the Texas side, and she lived in Texarkana, just about like Moorhead and Fargo type situation, and so on and so forth. And no need to feel sorry for these people when they should be taking care of themselves, and the same thing goes for us. There's things in the state of Minnesota, in our nation, that we should be demanding of our senators, our congressmen, our governors, our legislators, and that's the big thing Inform TV is all about. And we talked in a previous segment how the net financial assets now of the U.S., the paid for assets, in other words, that the real value if you sold something, 10% of the people own 90% of the assets now, according to Financial Times. Just incredible. And the other thing, when we look at some of the issues that are affecting us of little tidbits that come across my desk in reading and scanning and that type of thing. And this is relating to the Fed. You know, we're going to have this new lady, and I'm unfortunately I don't think my voice is going to hold out to get to do that, at least today. Maybe I'll do it on Monday or Tuesday and put it up. This Fisher that is one of the Richard Fisher, that's one of the Fed governors, and this is a relation to an ag summit he's going to talk about. And DTN wrote this: Fisher is known as a vigilant inflation hawk, and in public statements pulls no punches. He has advanced breaking up too big to fail banks. Well, the reality is they've talked it, but they sure haven't accomplished it, into component businesses, and allowing only the traditional banking components to receive federal deposit insurance and access to Federal Reserve discount windows. Duh. That's the way it was for decades, and it still should be in place. But they talk about it, but they don't do anything on it. And the deposit insurance and this Dodd-Frank and having Obama there with no understanding of big picture financing. The same thing with Bush, so it's not a Republican or Democrat issue. It's just not having competent people anymore. Just letting all these politicians and these orators be in position. There's two things on this. The only way to include, if you really want to include inflation, you don't use higher interest rates like those of us that lived through the rapid inflation of the 80s when they had prime rate, what was it, got to 17% or something like that, instead of just tightening up the requirements for a loan, that you had to have more collateral down. And I would contend and continue to contend, if you look at the numbers, the only thing inflationary in economy, there's going to be some growth, efficiency, and so forth, that things will improve if your economy is run right. But the real inflation factor is always borrowed money. If you don't have too much borrowed money, there is no way that you have inflation. You're going to have some true growth, but not inflation. And so these academian theorists that think they know what's going on a big picture, the ag side proved that after the farm crisis of '85 that was caused by incompetence, not by anything else. But anyway, they also talk about here, Fisher also has been a keen appreciation for global export markets and what those mean to the overall health of the economy and agriculture. He is a former vice chairman of Kissinger Associate Deal, a strategic advisory firm chaired by former Secretary of State Kissinger, as well as a former deputy trade representative, and so on and so forth. The reality of trade, we're going to talk about the reality of trade, and these guys are involved in trade people that look at it in a way that they imply that they know what's going on, where the numbers just don't show it, and their trade numbers. And I was just looking here to see where I put the one sheet that had, I thought I had all my numbers with me. I picked up so many pieces of paper here, but I got a sheet anyway on Friday afternoon on more stuff on our incompetent trade policy with Mexico and Mexico under NAFTA, and the WTO thing on sugar. And what I want to get to you, and what I'm getting back here, folks, and this is related to this trade stuff we talked about in sugar, to show how incompetent our government is when they buy the line of these Fed Governor Fisher and this trade. We have to be free traders, we have to be smart traders and sound traders, and make adjustments in policy when Mother Nature changes things and productivity changes things. And here's what I'm getting at. On this sugar thing we talked about on a late Friday afternoon, the USDA, CCC, their Commodity Credit Corporation that gave sugar firms, these cooperatives and private companies some money for their inventory of the sugar that they had. And if you remember right when we were talking about this, we let basically 1 million ton of sugar in from Mexico, almost 2 million ton, but 1 million more than we should have in any manner, shape, or form off the 2012 crop. 1 million ton, people. And what it led to is, instead of making adjustments on this quota deal when the cane people didn't have as good a crop as our beet people, which is the northern part of the United States compared to cane in the south, is there was 300,000 ton that the cane people didn't produce, didn't meet their quotas of production. Instead of saying let the beet people fill it, no, they let Mexico dump all this mind-boggling amount of sugar into this country, and then what happens? We had to forfeit it. And they're just telling about now the cost of this is easily going to be over $250 million. And the stupidity of this action is the fact that on this 300,000 ton of sugar on the books on October 1, 2013 now, they have disposed of most of it under a program called FFP, which is a flexible program, feedstock flexible program, which in other words, they want them to make ethanol out of it. You know, we've heard all this garbage about how efficient Brazil is with their sugar cane, so they come up with this, you know, this scam about we're going to make sugar out of any excess rather than just managing the imports. Because we've historically, I've talked here how when Chuck Canton and I sold Tip O'Neill on sugar policy, we explained the domestic industry only wants 85%, but the world market is just a dump market. Everybody wants to produce sugar. Why? Because it's a high input crop, and it creates a lot of jobs. It takes a lot of people. So the politicians, whether it's the United States or any other country, they want that sugar industry, and we need it. The world needs sugar, and so on and so forth. But anyway, in this process, on this 300,000 ton now, they allowed ethanol interests to come in and buy this refined sugar, table-ready refined sugar, because just about all of it is beets. If it had been cane, it would have been raw, but that's not a whole lot of difference. But anyway, here's what I want you to think about. They've got about 25 cents a pound, or we as taxpayers in this forfeited sugar got about 25 cents a pound in it. You know what they just sold a big chunk of this sugar for? These they sold 217,000 ton of sugar to make bioenergy out of. In other words, ethanol. And they recovered $11.3 million. But the reality of it, they had well over 100 million in it. So they took this sugar that they have about 25 cents a pound in, and they just sold this big chunk, which I just explained to you. They just made an adjustment in a quota and let the beet people put their take over that quota and keep some of this unneeded flood of sugar in from Mexico. There'd been no cost at all. Instead, we're going to have at least a $250 million cost. They got about 25 cents a pound in this sugar. You know what they just sold this 217,000 ton of sugar for? 2.6 cents a pound. In other words, we sold sugar for 12 cents on a dollar. 11 to 12 cents on a dollar. And you see why I get furious at our rural farm state senators and congressmen, and I could care less what party they're from. The biggest part of this NAFTA deal and the sugar is that dumb damn Grassley down in Iowa, Republican, and Durbin in Illinois, and Roberts in Kansas, and Leahy, and all these same old fools that are on this conference committee that we talked in our first part of the segment that we don't think we're getting a farm bill anyway. They're catering to their lobbying buddies and so on and so forth. But just think of that. You buy something, you lend based on 25 cents a pound, which is sound policy. In fact, the lending level should be higher than that now with today's cost, but they get this sugar, and instead of just simply telling Mexico, don't bring it in, we're going to put it into, make ethanol out of it, and we're going to sell sugar that we got 25 cents a pound in to sell for 2.6 cents a pound. And just about all this is table-ready beet sugar. You could take 2 totes down there to any of these places, and we're talking some stuff in the valley, we're talking some stuff in southern Minnesota, Michigan, Idaho, and so on, and use it. It's table-ready product, and you just go, oh my goodness. You see why I want to say that we need Informed TV out there, and we need to show you people the complete and total incompetence of our government, and we've got to modernize it. Thanks for listening to Informed TV. I'm Alan Repke, Alexandria, Minnesota.
Hi, my name is Lane Kalina, General Manager of Farmers Union Oil Company in Alexandria. We have a location also in Garfield, convenience store. We deal in bulk fuels, propane. We have 2 convenience stores, a full service shop, tire department. And whenever you're coming by our location on Broadway or Garfield, we invite you to stop in and check out all the things we have to offer. We are a cooperative, and we do pay dividends to our customers, and it is a true locally owned co-op where we are self-sufficient. We're owned by our members, and all dividends, anything that's made here is paid back to our customers. So stop in and check us out and buy a tank of gas.